Welcome to episode 228 of the Grip Strip Podcast, 2 out of 3 Ain't Bad edition of the Grip Strip Podcast. My name is Philip Matthew. I'm your host. Still in disbelief of what happened yesterday at Silverstone. And as always, I'm with my co-host, the iRacing Indy 500 champion, computer genius, gentleman and a scholar, and one of the biggest Jacksonville Jaguar fans that exists. We're getting closer to football season, but you're still busy with your racing. His name is Joshua Fine. What's going on, brother?
Doing great, Phil. Great July 4th weekend and everything and all that. But over in Britain, first time since 2021, December, Lewis Hamilton is a winner, and I think I'm right there with you. Couldn't believe it as well.
Yeah, I mean, as the great Richard once said after he won at Daytona, 1776, we were champs. I'm not so sure about it these days, but Richard did have a good 4th of July weekend since now he's a father, and he actually did well on a road course. We'll talk about Sir Lewis Hamilton getting his first win in 2.5 years at the British Grand Prix and all that comes with that. Fact that McLaren completely shit the bed twice, first with Oscar Piastri and then with Lando Norris, and Lando Norris doing what he usually does best, which is spitting the bit. Then in IndyCar, McLaren was able to get redemption since Pato O'Ward got his first win on track in 2 years and held off Alex Palou to do so. In the process, Scott Dixon, a 6-time winner at Mid-Ohio, ends up not even being able to race because of hybrid issues. Interesting in the debut of hybrid that it might be the reason why Scott Dixon doesn't win a 7th title this year, but we'll get in all the IndyCar happenings since they'll be back this coming weekend at Iowa for a doubleheader. NASCAR raced at Chicago. The Xfinity race was quite interesting and pretty cool. It was on dry racetrack, so that also helped. It also proved once again how good Shane Van Gisbergen is at driving a stock car on a road course. On Sunday, the Cup Series race, we'll get into that. There's plenty to dive into. Caitlin Vincey's husband becomes a first-time winner as a crew chief. Alex Bowman didn't end up naked on his bathroom floor puking, but Tyler Reddick puked for him to allow him to get his first win in 80 races and lock himself and all of Hendrick Motorsports into the playoff after Penske did that last week. The roundup will be somewhat busy. I mean, with F2, F3 at Silverstone, MotoGP, Moto2 at Sachsenring, Supercars at Townsville, Indy next, Mid-Ohio last week, Iowa this week. WEC will be at Interlagos, and IMSA with LMP2s and GT will be at Mosport. World Superbikes will be back at Donington, and then the Hydro X Prix in Great Britain for Extreme back for the first time in months. I think there's NHRA as well, but I'll confirm that. IndyCar doubleheader at Iowa Speedway. We'll preview and make picks. Figure at least one or both of those races, one of us, or maybe both of us, will just go and pick the unlikable Joseph Newgarden, but because that's just what he does. He wins on ovals. Or who knows, maybe go and deviate off of that. We'll answer the question about can Alex Palou hold on when you consider that the majority of the schedule now will be ovals to close the season. NASCAR tripleheader at one of my favorite places on earth, Pocono Raceway. Unfortunately, unless some miracle happens, I will not be able to go and enjoy the festivities at the Tricky Triangle. But there will be racing starting on Friday evening and going all the way into Sunday afternoon, where they have basically sold out yet again at Pocono Raceway because they actually price it properly for fans. They actually give a good fan experience, etc., etc. No, I'm not paid by Pocono Raceway, but plenty of people rag on the track. NASCAR's moved to not even bother to race in the Northeast, screwed Pocono out of 2 dates. They're trying to get rid of Dover in the process too, so any opportunity that the Northeast has to have a race, I'm going to go and promote it. So that's where Pocono comes in. Josh will let us know all things going on in iRacing and gaming in his sim segment, and then we'll call it a day. So yeah, the British Grand Prix was probably one of the most emotional moments of my fandom. I was basically a mess from the time that Lewis got off the hangar straight until probably they started spraying champagne, I think, or before, when they were doing the anthem, I think the national anthem for Germany for the constructors. I think it took that long. Lewis Hamilton, on a day where he started on the front row, was just a little bit shy of beating Woody for the pole. Went out there, got a good start, was behind Woody, ended up passing him once track conditions got a little sketchy for the first time, and took off for a while, but then Lando Norris, the McLaren being the fastest car, went and passed him, and he held basically a solid 3-second lead for a good amount of that initial stint before they moved to intermediate tires when it was time, unlike when other people like Charles Leclerc and Sergio Perez, who was starting tailback, went on inters and basically ruined their entire day. The pit stops for Lando Norris, he was able to maintain the lead. Lewis was in second place, and then Russell was right there with him. They were able to double stack and get them in, but McLaren decided not to double stack with Oscar Piastri, which basically screwed up his day. Russell ended up having an engine issue and had to retire while running for a podium place and a chance to win the British Grand Prix, make the first British podium, all British podium since 1968. Tells you how long it's been since there's been 3 Brits on the podium altogether. I mean, and all those names are legendary names. I think, what was it, Stewart, Surtees, and Hill. Yeah, Hill, Stewart, Jackie Stewart, and Sir John Surtees, Sir Jackie Stewart, and yeah. So I mean, you're talking about elite company there. But then the race kind of flipped on its head when it started to get dry with about 15 to go. They're about 15, 17 to go, and Lewis pitted a lap before with an undercut, went on soft tires because he only had used softs. Fish Lips actually made a call for new hard tires, him and GP, and Lando and McLaren couldn't make a decision on what tire made most sense. They had used softs and they had new mediums. They chose the softs. Then Lando overshot his marks, so then they had a slow pit stop. And from there, he lost the lead. And for the last, 17 laps or whatever it was, I was basically frozen. Couldn't move, it seemed, and I didn't want to move. I'm like, I didn't want to believe it's possible. And so it kept on going. The lap count kept going down. Fish Lips ends up passing Lando somehow clean. Basically, Lando was a sitting duck on the hangar straight, and he pulled over like a dog. And Fish Lips passed him by with 5 laps to go. And I think it was 3.5 seconds or so when he passed Norris, the gap to him between him and Hamilton. he got about a second, and then really it kind of steadied out. And in the end, it was one of the coolest, best moments in my life as a fan and in sports, honestly. I mean, hell, they talked about it on Access Hollywood because Brad Pitt was there, of course. But, you know, they talked about it because Lewis was a producer of the new movie F1. Unique title there. They must have spent hours figuring that one out.
Apex was a better idea.
Yeah, Apex would have been cool, or using some sort of reference to Formula One instead of, you know, like, but it was unbelievable. I'm still in shock. I'm still liking numerous posts, and I don't really care. I pissed off Army people who troll on Lewis Team LH accounts, which seems to be something that would be like, when your guy wins every freaking race, or basically every race, why are you worried about Lewis Hamilton fans shitting on your guy? That's one thing I don't understand. I had one person respond in all Dutch, so I'm like, well, that's fun. You could have said anything you want to say about me, and I can't really respond. Yet other people, I mean, basically I referenced the fact that at least until that point, I had not seen any real acknowledgement from Fish Lips to Lewis in congratulating him. He did give him a wave bye on the cool down lap. Didn't hear him say anything in his, or whatever, the interview he did with Jensen. Didn't seem to really say much anything in the cool down room, other than long time, and Lewis was able to say ball hogger, and it probably meant ball hugger, because that's what he does with Christian Horner, Fish Lips, and One-Eyed Marco, because his balls are probably all the way to the ground. But the fact of the matter is, anytime I get a chance to shit on that guy, I will, even if he did a good job, which at the end of the day, for once, he didn't crash into somebody. He actually had to race someone and didn't make a fool out of himself. They didn't have a good car the whole weekend. He was on the back foot. They didn't give us a lot of radio from him, interestingly, kind of covering for the guy after last week. I mean, even the stewards finally came out and said they should have given him a black and white flag or whatever for his movement, his Floyd Mayweather-like movement on the racetrack. But I digress in regards to that. For 1 week in this Formula One season, and 1 week for the first time in 2.5 years, we get us fans of Lewis Hamilton get to celebrate again. And he broke a record with one M. Schumacher, becoming a 9-time winner of the British Grand Prix. Schumacher, I think, won the French Grand Prix 8 times. And also, Lewis has 8 wins at Hungary, which is the next race on the calendar. And he qualified on pole before he crapped himself on the start last year. So, possibility. I mean, I'm not going to get too far out on that, Josh, but it was an epic day, epic moment in Formula One for Lewis, to see him with his mom and his dad and his mom, the emotion, the realness, the celebration, the joy that he had. It's a welcome respite from what we've gotten used to, basically since the start of 2021. And I mean, for this week and for a couple of weeks' time, Lewis Hamilton fans are probably going to be pretty bad, and even me. But after what has gone on, I really don't give a fuck. Lewis went out there and won, and he beat everybody on merit, because there's a reason why he's a GOAT, and he proved it yesterday.
Yeah, Lewis, I mean, wasn't even sure if he'd ever come back, and I think that's to Victory Lane, and that's why I think, it's so emotional to see him in Victory Lane for him and all his fans and everything. And I think for me, turning on the race and seeing, obviously Lewis in qualifying in second and George Russell on the pole. And, you watch the race in the beginning of the race and they held position and Lewis wasn't that far back, and kind of begin to think the beginning of the race, before the rain started to come in, and think, well, there's a possibility that he could win and, do that. And then took the lead, and then immediately they went wide in the first corner, but in lap 19. But it was really interesting seeing that happen, of course. But obviously, he won on track, won on by merit, and hung around the whole time. So for Lewis, it's been a long time coming for him, and of course, leaving Mercedes for Ferrari at the end of the year. Obviously he wants to be able to go out with at least one win, and I think for him, no place better than to do it at the British Grand Prix. So yeah, like you said, 9th win in this race, so that's a record, obviously, and being able to do that for him, and especially after so long, I think that just makes it very very meaningful for him. But for the rest of the field, I think for Lando, I think it's another race, like said, Lando's thrown away at least 3 races this year, or at least McLaren has thrown away 3 races this year, and that's definitely something that as they continue in this championship, I think Lando's going to have to think back on what they could have done differently, because the opportunity has been there to close the gap in points to Verstappen, and as we continue to go on throughout the next couple of months, as we get to the summer break and everything, and for Verstappen, for Norris, their battle, it could be a lot closer than it is. But for now, Lewis Hamilton kind of puts a end to the Red Bull domination, along with George Russell last week in Austria. So Mercedes, obviously, they found something, so they're just as competitive as they currently are, as they've been so in the last couple of years. So they definitely could have a something to show in the next couple of weeks, which they've already done the last 2 races, which is, I think it's incredible that the last 2 races have been won by Mercedes, after 3 years almost of Red Bull dominance mostly, and McLaren also coming up there as well. But Mercedes, since the new car, they've struggled so much being able to get it right, to get it handling right. And I think this year they finally kind of figured something out, and now we're beginning to see their improvements come along here in this season. And Red Bull, obviously, they're not as good, and Verstappen, driving a lot more on the limit these days than what he'd probably like to. So he's probably more prone to having to push the car, where the other guys, they still have more, I guess, in the tank as far as performance goes. So I think for the championship, I mean, still might be Verstappen's championship, still might be Red Bull's championship, but definitely it's not going to go down easy, because Mercedes and McLaren, they're definitely going to have at least a little bit to say here for the rest of the season.
Yeah, I mean, that's where, between the McLarens, Piastri wants to get his first win badly. Lando, as you mentioned, and McLaren, how many missed opportunities there have been. And then Mercedes actually having a worthwhile race car for the first time in 2.5 years. That is a positive. And, like Woody, people who are anti-Lewis, whatever, they're fans of Woody or they're Max people or whatever they are, talking about the qualifying gap that Woody's ahead 10-2, and I'm like, and that's great, but they don't pay points for qualifying. They pay points on Sunday, and as of yesterday, he's 1 point behind Georgie boy. Granted, if George had probably was able to finish the race, I think he would have been in no worse than probably 4th. So, yeah, that gap wouldn't be as close, but So be it. I think another, storyline other than those top four, because it was Lewis, Verstappen, it got much closer in the final lap because I think Lewis was crying and he couldn't see. Then Lando finished 7.5 seconds behind or whatever because his tires were gone. Piastri was in fourth. Carlos Sainz ended up getting a free pit stop, running the fastest lap on a weekend where Ferrari would want to forget. I mean, Carlos Sainz is a former winner of this race, and he was 47 seconds, albeit with a pit stop, behind the race winner. Nico Hülkenberg getting consecutive sixth-place finishes for Haas on a weekend where they announce, Ollie Bierman was announced already, I think, last week or whatever, but they announced that Esteban Ocon's going to be coming over there next year. So I guess Gene wants to pay for damaged race cars again. But yeah, brand new driver pairing next year at Haas. We'll see how that all works out now that Gene has consolidated at least his motorsports involvement to one Cup car for Cole Custer next year, and then 2 Xfinity cars for who knows who, and then you'll have a new driver pairing in Formula One. The Astons finished 7th and 8th with Nepo Stroll ahead of Alonso. Alex Albon gets top 10, gets a 9th place finish, gets a couple of points for Williams that they need. Yuki Tsunoda rounds out the points finishers. Logan Sargent was about 9 seconds away from a point there. Would have been big for him to get that. It seems like the way the tea leaves are reading that Logan Sargent may not have a job after the summer break. At least that's one rumor that's out there. Whether it's that Kimi Antonelli, who we'll talk about in the roundup, or whether it's Colapinto, or I don't know who. They pick some other guy to fill out the rest of the season, to be determined. But he had a good weekend this weekend, got into Q2, had a chance to get into Q3, and then was right there, right on the periphery of the points. So, and in the end, he was 20 seconds behind his teammate, which isn't great, but relative to where he was a year ago, he has made some progress, and they finally are giving him the same car as Albon. So, for what it's worth, it's almost like what Michael Andretti did in the Italian Grand Prix in his final Formula One race, when he finally had a handle of everything. They still had issues. He was a lap down, but he still got a fucking podium. You have Leclerc, absolute nightmare weekend for him. The Sergio Perez, my God. I don't know what has happened to the guy. He is a shell of the guy that won multiple Grand Prix. Last year he finished second in points. I have a hard time believing he's going to finish better than sixth the way things are going right now. It's gotten to the point where now Karen Horner and One-Eyed Marco and them are talking about his stipulations in his contract. But my question is, who the hell are they going to put in the car? They could get rid of Sergio Perez, that's fine and well, and his money, even though it's good money from Carlos Slim, they could find other ways to get around it. I think for the next year and a half, if they brought up Yuki Tsunoda, they probably could get better results with him, but I don't think they want to mess with the balance with Toro Rosso or whatever. So then you're going to put a washed Daniel Ricciardo in the car? Like, what does that prove? He's barely any better than Perez at this point. You're not going to put in, why am I forgetting his name? He's in Super GT right now. Oh, damn it. I have to look it up there. But he's also or Super Formula, my bad. Formula 2024. Yeah, so that's and Teo Porcher was there, and now I guess he went back. I don't know, because he got canned by McLaren. Ben Barnicoat is actually racing in Super Formula. That's interesting. I didn't know that.
Oh wow,
Ben Barnicoat, who
Vassar Sullivan,
Vassar Sullivan Sports Cars. Nobuharu Matsushita. You have Juju Noda, the lady driver, and the daughter of Hideki Noda driving as well. So that's something. She's going by one name these days, so she's just like all these musicians going by one name. Why? Like, I thought that, I guess he's not doing that this year. All right. Liam Lawson. There you go. Yeah, that's who it is. Liam Lawson. That's what would happen, I guess. They'd probably bring up Ricardo to run out the next year and a half. And then they'll find a new driver for 26 with the new formula. And then, whether that's Liam Lawson, to be determined. I don't think anyone wants to be the caddy for Fish Lips, knowing Red Bull's history in general, and the fact that most of these guys that used to be Red Bull drivers leave Red Bull and end up doing better. I think the only exception is Daniel Ricciardo, of someone who wasn't as good really, but he still won a race for McLaren, still won a race before Lando Norris, so there is that. George Russell only DNF. Pierre Gasly didn't even start because he took he hit the whole lottery of penalties because they replaced every piece of that Renault power unit, and then he didn't even make it to the starting line. So that was an absolute abomination of a weekend for him. And that was, I think, he also beached it in qualifying too, which was unnecessary. And that was probably just like collateral damage at that point. Or am I mixing him up with Ocon on that one? I don't remember anymore. It's Alpine. They suck. But Carlos Sainz is probably going there. So we'll see what happens with that. Points. Spent as much time, if not more time, on Formula One today than I think we've spent the whole entire year. And probably because it's interesting. It was interesting yesterday. Oh, and Lewis Hamilton won. Fish Lips has is that 450, 80, is that right? 33, and yeah, this fucking points lead. So high that 84, I was right. 84-point lead on Norris. So you think about that, that's 3 full races with a fastest lap with an extra 6 points just for shits and giggles. Then after that, the battle after behind Lando Norris is very interesting. 40 points separates Charles Leclerc in third and Lewis Hamilton in eighth. And both Russell and Hamilton are within single digits of Perez. You have Leclerc 4 points up on his teammate Carlos Sainz. Then there's a gap to Piastri, who's 6 points out of Perez, who's 7 points out of Russell, 8 points out of Lewis Hamilton. And then there's the cliff, which is everybody else. Aston Martin in their own world. Fred Alonso doubled the points of Nepo Stroll. Then Nico Hulkenberg, a point behind Stroll now after consecutive 6th place finishes. Tsunoda, 9 points higher than Ricciardo. Ollie Bierman is still up there. He scored more points than, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 drivers that are full-timers. That's scary. I would be really incensed if I drove a kick save, Slauber or Williams or an Alpine, really.
Or a Haas.
Well, yeah, and Kevin Magnussen is giving it up because after he was hitting everybody for a few races now, I think he's just done. And then once the announcement came, what do you expect Kevin Magnussen to do the rest of the season? I mean, he thought he was driving for a ride, and then he gets replaced by freaking Esteban Ocon. He'd be liable to start going egghead and drive around like half throttle or whatever he did and just not know that what's in his mirrors or crash and everything, but we'll see what happens. Constructors is 71 points between Red Bull and Ferrari. And then Ferrari and McLaren are only separated by 7. So that's an intriguing battle. I mean, it isn't as intriguing because McLaren is definitely faster than Ferrari these days. Mercedes is on their own along in 4th, Aston Martin in 5th. That's that cliff again. Then RB, Toro Rosso, whatever, 4 points at a Haas. And then Alpine with 9 points, Williams with 4, and Slauber with 0. Valtteri Bottas is behind Logan Sargent because Logan has a better finish. So that's something. When you consider Valtteri Bottas's career arc, being at Williams and competitive, then becoming teammates with Lewis and their partnership, and having multiple really good seasons and then a couple that were really bad, akin to what Sergio Perez has been doing, and to now driving the worst car on the grid and being dead last in the points, pretty fucking sad. And who knows, maybe he won't be on the grid either next year, so that would be epic fall from grace for Valtteri Bottas, but we'll see what happens. Okay, let's move over to the Indy cars, and to be completely honest, there really isn't a whole lot from the IndyCar race. It was green all the way once they cleared Scott Dixon's stricken PNC Bank car but Pato O'Ward and Alex Palou, they started on the front row. They were separated very little, one of the smallest gaps ever, I think, for a front row in recent times. But he ends up going and getting that victory because they had a better final pit stop. Alex Palou had hesitation getting his car in gear, I believe, and getting going. I don't know if it was a hybrid-related problem or if it was something else, but Palou had a slow exit, and that basically opened the door for O'Ward past him, and then Palou, no matter what he tried to do, couldn't get by him again. So Pato O'Ward gets his first win on track in 2 years over Alex Palou, and probably something where Zach Brown is happy because they beat Alex Palou, but considering McLaren's history with drivers, I don't know if he has if he has a leg to stand on, since they're getting rid of Alexander Rossi for Christian Lundgaard, which was announced this past weekend. So Siegel will be there. They say Siegel's going to be there for the long term, and I guess that's the same thing for Lundgaard. But we'll see what they're able to do. Scott McLaughlin finished in 3rd. Colton Herta and Marcus Ericsson 4th and 5th for Andretti. Ross, the aforementioned Rossi, finished ahead of the guy who's going to be taking over his car in Lundgaard. Kyle Kirkwood from 14th to 8th. Christian Rasmussen gets his best finish of his IndyCar career so far in 9th. Root Beer Floathead was getting into it with somebody in practice in the morning warm-up, but then drove from 21st to finish 10th. Will Power just outside in 11th. David Malukas got to the Fast 6, but had issues, I think, with pit stops, and found himself back in 12th. But still, credit to Malukas in his second race back to be right on pace. finished 2 positions out of his teammate Rosenqvist. Split by Toby Sowery, the former Indy Next driver, making his debut for Dale Coyne. One of the better debuts they've ever had. I wonder, Hunter McElroy will be testing their car, but I think Sowery might be a solution for them if he can get the funding, because to go out there, run top 15 in an Indy car after you've barely been in one, beating a lot of, solid competitors, including, of course, Dixon and Joseph Newgarden, and other race winners and Rosenqvist, Green Rehal, Renus VK, and those are the other ones. Yeah, so the race itself, it was basically that head-up battle between O'Ward and Palou. Maybe something that could butt into a rivalry because of, all the different machinations. But in the end, Pato O'Ward went out there and proved why he's one of the best drivers on the grid and someone you can never count out. The Indy 500 got out of his hands, but he wasn't going to allow this win to get out of his hands.
Yeah, this race for Pato, first on-track win in 2 years, so it's a huge win for Pato there, and brings him into third place in the standings, of course, in this championship here. So still a bit behind behind Will Power and Palou there, but certainly there's still an opportunity here. And of course, oval heavy schedule coming up, and even though O'Ward, he's won a couple of races on ovals, so there's still a possibility for him in this championship. So I think it's definitely a good time for him on the schedule to mount a challenge on the for the championship. But this race, definitely for him, he was able to hang around up front, and I think really what opened the door for him was just being on a better tire strategy than Palou overall. But of course, the whatever hiccup Alex Palou had coming off the pit road on his final stop there, after it looked like a clean stop for his team, but then as soon as they put down the jack and supposed to be ready to go, it seemed like he had a second or two there where he couldn't get the car started or back into gear. So that's all it took for Palou to lose the lead right there, and we saw it as Pato was able to go out and pass him there going into the keyhole at that turn there. So very significant win there for Pato, and now he gets to say he actually won a race this year. So that's good for him. But Palou missed opportunity here, and considering that now we're going to ovals and not trying to say that he's not good at oval racing, right? But certainly, it's one that needs to get better at, right? For Palou. So this could be a turning point here, but we'll see here in the I guess this weekend how comparatively how they can perform on an oval track. But really, it's those guys were class of the field. Of course, Scott McLaughlin out in the distance and led a couple of laps, 16 seconds behind. So still decent run there for him as well. So this the hybrid era here in IndyCars here. Of course, the only issue Scott Dixon there, but otherwise no problems. Like that, NBC is able to kind of show the difference in energy between all the cars and who is on the hybrid power versus not. And I like, that difference there. Of course, James Hinchcliffe getting back in the car to better understand the hybrid technology. That's good as well. So, I think other than the stuff with Dixon, I think, pretty much a success there. So not sure how much it really helps in terms of the racing, but as long as we don't have problems with reliability and stuff like we were talking about possibly happening going into this race, I think that's pretty successful debut there, of course, and everything. I think one driver that we should talk about here, besides Scott Dixon, that had a terrible race and has really had a terrible season outside of the Indy 500, Joseph Newgarden, of course, having a terrible race this past weekend and going off, hitting the curb on the apex, I think, and going off track there. So yeah, other than that, he's just had a terrible year overall. And for him talking about unfollowing everybody and trying to focus everything into racing, I mean, he's hasn't really been able to recover from the penalties after the debacle at St. Petersburg and push to pass and all that stuff. And of course, the Indy 500 won that, but outside of that, really hasn't had much else to write home about. So that's one guy I think besides Scott Dixon who had a bad race and really a bad year, and now he's 10th in the standings, so hasn't really been able to make a charge since the Indy 500. So that was one driver. I mean, that I saw was like, wow, what a bad race, and especially for the expectations there, and being able to come into this season with a supposed renewed focus. I think that's one guy that we have to look at and point at and be like, well, what's happening here? So that's disappointing there. But of course, now we go to Iowa, and looking forward to see how these Indy cars how they react to, I guess, the partially repaved surface over there.
Yeah, the partial repave, then you add the hybrid unit and how they're going to be able to utilize that on an oval. I like you said, Josh, showing the graphics was big. Hinch having the experience driving Malukas' car on Friday, and then doing the whole build up to it, explaining it during the race. There's a reason why now, I mean, until Junebug comes back. I mean, I even with Junebug gone, I think Hinch is probably the best analyst in racing right now. So Fox has to go and pay him whatever he wants to get him. I also would be remiss if I didn't mention Charlie Kimball, the former winner at Mid-Ohio, for his lone IndyCar win. He did a great job on pit road. A lot of energy, a lot of knowledge, of course, of many years of racing, and he knows a lot of these guys. He's still in the paddock, so I think if there's somebody else that's going to get that they probably need to be going after, I think Jimbo Kimball would be one of them in some way, whether it would be in the pits or some other part, because he does the analyst role for Indy Next with Kevin Lee. And Kevin Lee, there you go. Like I'm starting to basically like, hey, sign him. It's Fox. They can sign whoever they want, and hopefully they put a good foundation together. Since I'm certain of certain people, I feel like I have with good certainty who they might be using, and I don't want to really see them there. So, but those are three people that I think would be great hires, for sure. I mentioned the whole Lundgaard deal that he's going over to McLaren. So it mentioned he's just outside of the top 10. He's only 4 points behind Newgarden, who has 3 top 5 finishes this season in 9 races, and 1 pole. And this is a 2-time IndyCar Series champion, and now a 2-time winner of the Indianapolis 500. But like Josh said, nothing else. It doesn't really, I mean, when it comes to, as long as you win Indy, honestly, nothing else really matters. But when you're a Penske driver and you're as good as he has been, like, that's not good enough. But he's Teflon. He'll be all right. He'll probably recover next season. But you mentioned the points, Josh. I mean, 29 and 48 point lead on Winch Power. Then he has a 22 point lead on Pato O'Ward. O'Ward, Dixon are only separated by a point. Colton Herta, 10 points behind O'Ward. The bat from Pato O'Ward all the way to Scott McLaughlin, I think is, 35 points. So that's a great mix there. O'Ward, Dixon, Herta, Kirkwood, Rossi, and McLaughlin. So Rosenquist is 6 points out of Newgarden and 10 points out of Lundgaard. Marcus Ericsson in 12th. And Root Beer Floathead is only 18 points out of 9th. So that's a nice battle there amongst those drivers and how that will all work out moving forward. All right, so let us go and move over to Blake Harris, Alex Bowman, and 48 Ally car goes out and gets the win. They, I think in a lot of ways, basically were the last man standing because other people were busy crashing either themselves or crashing into someone else. They stayed out on the wet tires on that final run, and then plenty of cautions came out. And then when they run stage breaks, they take too long. They start the race at 5:15 Eastern, so I think it was 4:15 Central, and they basically raced into the rain. It got too heavy. Bowman went and cleaned out Bubba. Bubba showed his displeasure, and it became an international news story, it seemed like. But Clyde did the same thing to Daniel Suarez, and nobody cares because he's Clyde. In terms of the results, the Grant Park 165 only went 58 laps, so they left. I think the race was scheduled for 85, I believe. So they ended up finishing 27 laps short, I believe. I think that's what the scheduled distance was supposed to be, but might be wrong. Bowman with the win over Reddick. Gibbs, Ford Mustang pilot in the IMSA GT D Pro championship and long time. I mean, Joey Hand has been in major motorsport for over 20 years, and Kim Kuhn with her, typical weak ass questions and answers and whatever, says sort of road racer Joey Hand. I'm like, sort of road racer.
He's a 24-hour Rolex champion.
He's won every single major, I think. I mean, he's won at Le Mans. He's won the Rolex overall. He's won at the 12 Hours of Sebring. I'm pretty sure he's won at Watkins Glen too. So, I mean, yeah. But that was a 60 car. In the pick'em pool I picked Cam Waters. He had a nightmare weekend. If I had picked Joey Hand, I would have probably scored 30 more points than what I did because SVG finished dead last. He got cleaned out by Chase Briscoe on one of at least 3 off-course excursions he had. I was going to make the reference point. It's like, I think Josh Berry hit everything but the lottery. It was almost like Dale Jr., like one of his first runs at Martinsville when he hit the pace car, I think, and amongst other times he went and hit everything, and his dad got on the radio and said, if he hits one more thing, I'm going to go and crash him out of this race. Josh Berry, I think, was trying to end it somehow, some way, because he hit everything, I think, yesterday. But, that was the Bowman ended up cleaning out Bubba, costing him a short top 10. They ignored Clyde's behavior, but then it's Clyde. But yeah, Joey Hand, I went and deviated off, but Hand got a stage win in the second stage, was in the mix racing with Bowman late. ends up fourth. Michael McDowell in a Chicago White Sox car, finished fifth. Richard, the new father, finished sixth. Todd Gilliland seventh. Byron eighth after what was a very long weekend for the 24 team. Kyle Busch actually gets a top 10, and Brian Blaney rounding out the top 10. Suarez, I mean, they're all but, what is it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 drivers finished on the lead lap. John Hunter Nemechek was running well most of the day and then crashed into, I believe, the turn 12 tire barriers and took off and got air like Tony Hawk at the X Games, landed and then went and got started again. Christopher Bell, who was up there for a good amount of the race, but once he pitted, it became an issue. He ends up getting wrecked late. He was thinking he was going to get a chance to win and went to hell. Allmendinger didn't have pace most of the weekend, but then late was in a position to make a day out of it, and then proceeded to run off into one of the runoff areas. Mention Larson, mention SVG. Briscoe got up from 22nd all the way to 4th on merit and was up front. The 14 team had a bad pit stop, of course, slow pit stop, whatever it was. He lost track position. Then they go back under green when it was heavy rain. And I'm like, do you even have people out on the racetrack? You don't have spotters. Like, you're not looking at the radar. They had a double file restart into that whole thing instead of single file. They were doing single file restarts late when they could have done double. They start the race at 4:15 their time, right in the peak of when the rain was going to happen, and end up, I don't know how long the rain delay was.
Hour and 43 minutes.
Okay, thank you. Hour, yeah, there you go. It says it right there. So, hour, almost 2 hours of rain delay. They end up deciding to go to a timed race, which that I agree with. But if you're going to go for a timed race, you don't go and throw a caution for the stage break. You don't go and take forever to clean up some of the incidents that took place either. But, in the end, Alex Bowman gets the victory, locks himself into the Cup Series playoffs with to become the 12th different winner so far in 2024. Martin Truex right now is, I think it says, 70. Yeah, he's 70 points behind Larson. Larson, even with his rough situation at Chicago, 42 points is Larson's lead over Denny Hamlin. So that's a 4-driver race, I guess, if you count Byron for that regular season title. Elliott is actually in it too, to be fair, so that's like 5. But yeah, Bowman goes and gets a much needed victory for him, Blake Harris, and the whole Ally 48 team. I was about to say 24 team.
Yeah, so for me, I thought this race was, they got to start an hour earlier, like you said, or at least because the Xfinity race, had better weather, but they started at 3:30, and the Cup Series started at 4:15 local time. So they've got to push the start back to 1 p.m. Or anything like that, like what we used to have, especially in the summer where afternoon or late afternoon thunderstorms are definitely possible. So that's the first thing. But I felt like the racing itself was fine, especially for the street course, and seeing the street course again. At least this time we were able to get in some amount of racing in before the rain came and everything, and we saw SVG go out and methodically work his way from 5th all the way until 1st and take the first stage. So at least there was that. But there's still a lot of things that went wrong, mainly with the rain in this race. So of course, almost 2 hour rain delay doesn't help and everything. And then of course, one of the reasons why we have the rain delay is because the tires don't perform that well in standing water, of course, and it's got to be more damp than soaking wet for the rain tires to work. Visibility being an issue and everything. They, of course, they tried to, when it was getting heavy, they did try to, or before they went red, they did try to run. And of course, that led to issues on track, of course. And it's clear that NASCAR was rushing things. And of course, that led to the end of SVG's race there and, getting clipped by Chase Briscoe, not his fault, but just, matter of circumstance there and not being able to defend this year's race. So, SVG, obviously the favorite, gets taken out pretty early, and then of course Kyle Larson was also one of the other favorites in this race, and then he slammed the brakes too hard going into turn 6 and slammed into the tire barriers pretty hard, which was actually a pretty hard impact. So that was for street racing and everything. Didn't realize how bad that was until I saw it, but it was definitely a bad impact there. And then seeing the rest of the race kind of play out and how it did, the diversion between wet tires, staying on the wet tire and going back onto the slick tires, of course, created interesting strategy there. So Tyler Reddick, of course, really fast throughout that final couple of laps, but just wasn't able to catch Alex Bowman there at the very end. So made a mistake there again, and Tyler Reddick has got to be feeling it, having been up there lately and not being able to close for the win. But Alex Bowman, of course, hasn't won since March 2022 in Las Vegas, and comes out here and finally picks up another victory here in the Cup Series. So I look at Alex Bowman. He's not a guy that really goes out and dominates a race and gets the win like his teammate Kyle Larson and William Byron there, and even Chase Elliott. But he's a guy that finds a way to win when he has the opportunity to do so, and that's kind of how his career, how his wins, most of them have come. They haven't really come through dominating. I think only one of them have, but they've all come by just being at the right place at the right time. And they talked about him at the broadcast at the top of the show being kind of a underdog in this race, and despite how he had performed throughout the weekend. So obviously they brought a good car, and then they were able to execute on strategy there. So that's definitely a big win. Kind of a bracket buster a little bit. Does tighten up the playoff grid a little bit there. So now there's 4 drivers. I think he was already locked or in on points, but now 4 drivers are guaranteed or not guaranteed to make the playoffs on points or on wins. So now we see how we have 7 races left before the playoffs now. So we'll see how they're able to close that out. But I think for me, for this race weekend, I'd like to see them continue to run this race. Actually, I think they just need to run it earlier. They really could run a street race anywhere, and I think I'd be okay with it. But Chicago being the visibility of it and being the uniqueness of it, I think they need to try to do it again. And I like that the mayor of the city was able to actually come out and put on the suit there. So like that. But hopefully it becomes a staple, kind of like how we have Long Beach as a staple race over an IndyCar. So hopefully maybe this turns into something like that and everything, despite kind of the setbacks that it's had in the last, the first 2 years of it being run. So I think they still have 1 year left on the contract for them. If it's a 3-year deal, I'm not sure, but hopefully, they're able to work something out and, get it on the schedule here long term, and becomes a yearly thing.
Yeah, I think at least initially, at least for next year, they're going to have it. For 26, I think that's where Kennedy and them are going to start really moving around these races. So we'll find out, though. I didn't really mind the racing for until it kind of imploded for Briscoe there. I mean, Bell had done what he needed to do. Him and Adam Stevens called a good race. Just he got caught out there late. I mean, Reddick probably had a chance to win, but he ended up going and taking a sharp angle in a turn, turn 5, and bouncing off of both walls and screwing himself there. So it's 2 weeks in a row where he's left wondering if giving up points and giving up opportunities and allowed 2 more people into the playoff in the process. One that was outside of the cutoff and one that was already inside. So we'll see what happens. I mean, Bowman ends up getting in a Bubba. Bubba loses the point, or ends up finishing 13th. Salvaging his day. I said that because I said it to Phil and Sarah, Phil Spain and Sarah. I'm not forgetting her last name now. I feel bad. I can bring it up because the reality is there.
Sarah Davis, right?
Sarah Davis. There you go. Thank you again. Yeah. So they were talking about it, and they were, and a lot of the Bubba, fan base wasn't happy about it. Bubba showed his displeasure after. Bowman actually, and they don't have the greatest of relationships. They've had their issues over the years. NASCAR's using it as a way to go and basically make Darrell out to be a hothead, when in fact he's the one whose race was ruined and probably could have had a chance to actually win yesterday, or at least be in a position to top 5, top 10 finish. He ends up getting a top 15. So it shows what kind of speed that car had, shows the confidence he's built now, especially with Reddick there. They're trying to market his deal out because that's what they use him for. It seems like, to use him when something goes bad, instead of marketing him for the good, like the block party he had a couple of days before. Right, that's NASCAR. Always trying to get clicks. He's 45 points out right now behind Buescher. Another further 8 points behind Chastain. So, honestly, that math doesn't work because that's
gonna have to win.
Yeah, I mean, the reality of the world is, I think if the math is off for Keebler Gibbs there, at least what they're showing on J-Ski. I mean, Truex, I think, is fine. I think Keebler Gibbs basically is all right. Chastain and Buescher, not, strong, solid, but they have a good amount of points in their favor. After you get past Bubba, really, everybody has to win. I mean, 45 points isn't great either, to be fair. You're, 3/4 of a way to a perfect race win there, meaning you get both stage wins and then you win the race. So that's a pretty big amount of points to try to make up. But, as you mentioned, Josh, 7 races to go, so he could chop at it. But the way things are going right now, who knows how many more drivers could win. I think Josh Berry, not counting road courses, of course, and super speedways, which of course Daytona is. I mean, Richmond, I would think, would be a big opportunity for him. That was where Kevin Harvick, I think, had his last real shot to win a race in his final year last year. And then, you look at some of these other racetracks. The schedule definitely is starting to lean into Bubba's favor, not just because of Toyota's pace, but because of some of the tracks that they're going to in general. He's been good at Daytona. He loves Michigan. Indy now is back to being the oval. Who knows what that could mean? I'm trying to think. What is it? Darlington, Ziffy. So there's options. There are opportunities there for him. But and then so we'll see what happens with that. The manager leaves his tires. I mean, that was one thing that was actually good by NASCAR, is they allowed the teams to make the determination yesterday whether they wanted wets or dries, and that made the race a little bit more interesting. Letarte was giving us that delta between slicks and wet tires, and giving us those details. The radio style broadcast gave us additional context. Bagley, proving why he's one of the better announcers out there. Dylan Welsh doing a good job in what was Calamity Corner over there. And then Burton, whatever, didn't really add much of anything. I'm trying to remember if there was nobody else. So, Chicago I think this can continue, but I'm curious as to where it goes next. Are you going to go to the Pacific Northwest? Are you going to come to the Northeast and maybe run a street course somewhere? They ran at ALMS ran in Washington D.C. way back when. Pocono's there, but then do they try Philly? There's options. The LA, they run the LA Coliseum for that. They had been with the Clash. Why don't they run around the LA Coliseum? They used to do it with the Southwest Tour. So, in the Xfinity race, was SVG, as I mentioned, 3 wins in a row on road courses. For him, has the playoff points lead at the moment with the number of playoff points he has. Right now, that's 7 drivers that are probably a lock. The ones that have won, plus Cole Custer. And let's get into the race results. Loop 110, SVG the winner over Keebler Gibbs, Larson, Parker Kligerman, and Jesse Love, the top 5. Connor Mozak driving the 88, qualified 3rd and ended up 6th. Hill, Joey Logano driving the 15 for AM Racing, gets a top 10 finish, and basically led to what the announcement was this afternoon, where Haley Deegan's out of that ride because she has been an abject disaster in that car. But the team itself, who runs the team, and then the personnel, doesn't sound like it's a very, very good environment to try and be a rookie in. But then what I don't understand is with that, that dipshit Brett Moffitt drove that car last year, and he was top 15 contender every single week. So I don't understand, other than there might have been a mass exodus of people from year to year, how they've struggled as much as they have when you consider what kind of cars and equipment they had the year before. But, Mose Logano, Allgaier, and Austin Green gets another top 10 finish. I'm starting to think that Jordan Anderson is trying to figure out a way to bring him into the fold, because I know Jeb Burton brings some money to the table, but he's had a terrible year this year. They would probably be better off getting Austin Green and getting ahead of the curve, and then have him as a full-time driver. I think he could assimilate to ovals, largely because of his family. I mean, his dad is David Green, and then he has his 2 uncles, and Jeff and Mark could help him learn ovals and stuff too. There were, 27 cars on the lead lap. Yeah, I mean, SVG held off two Cup guys to get the victory there and was very calculating throughout the day to go and get said victory. So, yeah, I mean, that for SVG, continuing to add those points that will help him get through at least one round and, maybe more. Josh.
Yeah, I agree there with SVG. I think, first of all, with the way that he was driving in that race, we've seen him drive in the Cup Series for the most part, in the Xfinity Series, especially on road course for the most part. Being able to go out and race cleanly like that for SVG, I think that's such a difference than what we've seen over the last couple of years here in this series. SVG running cleanly. That's how he learned how to race down in Australia in V8 supercars and everything. So such a difference than what we've seen here. I think, you got to give him a lot of credit for being able to race tactfully and race cleanly and pass guys by using his wit rather than, forcing the issue and trying to just, box somebody out of the way and just, bump him in the corner and try to get him out of the way there. So obviously we've seen him try it at Coda, but it didn't work out for him there. And I think maybe even doing that is what he tried to do with Austin Hill back then, maybe a little bit out of character to try to get around a guy for the lead. I mean, he did have to use the bumper, I think, a little bit in the Cup Series race, but it's probably more of incidental contact more than anything. But so got to give him a lot of credit there, first of all. And I think the other thing with SVG here in the Xfinity Series, there is possible that for him, it could end up with the most wins going into the playoffs here, and we still have one road course race left before the Xfinity Series playoff for SVG. So possibility that he could actually be the wins leader going into the end of the regular season here in the Xfinity Series, and technically be the I guess on wins. Would definitely be up there in playoff points and could sneak into that second round, which is where where we see the Roval at. So if he wins the Roval and wins, first wins the Glen and then goes and wins the Roval, there's a possibility that at the very least we could see him fighting for a playoff championship spot when they go to Martinsville, which I think is probably going to be a good track for him because it's such a rhythmic track, but it's also a track that you can run well at with good technique there and everything. Martinsville, I think, definitely a good track for road racers that are getting into the Cup Series or naturally good at road racing. So I think there's a lot of characteristics in short track racing that kind of transfer over from road racing. So I think, Shane Van Gisbergen gets all the way down to Martinsville and has a shot at being in the Final Four. That'd be incredible. So still a lot left to go, but there's definitely the possibility there that we have to think about if he's able to, go out and win the next two road course races here on the schedule. So that's definitely something to consider here, but still here in this series, still clearly being one of the best in this series in terms of road racing and figuring it out in the Xfinity car and everything shows that he has a lot of potential in the Cup car considering all the differences there. So just a great race ran by him here in this series and shows his talent there, but good finish for all the other guys like Parker Kligerman ran well. I mean, he's kind of a road course guy too. And of course saw him give a lot of praise to this course afterwards and showing how much he enjoyed racing here. Justin Allgaier, backup car and no logos or no paint design, just the logos, comes from the back to finish ninth. So good recovery there. Allmendinger, a little bit disappointing in Allmendinger. I thought maybe he would run a little bit better than 11th, but still, there's still time for him to kind of get things right here. Hasn't won yet, has hasn't won yet here this season. So still some opportunities for him to get up there and everything. So yeah, we'll see how the rest of this season plays out. I mean, there's still a lot left here in this series, but SVG. I mean, like I said, I think he could be a sleeper for the championship 4 if things play out in his favor. So we'll see how it goes.
Yeah, it's not as far-fetched. I mean, the points you made about the way the schedule lays out with the Glen and the Roval, but then, and also with Martinsville, I mean, you look at AJ Allmendinger, if there's an oval that he's probably, that is his best oval, I think it's Martinsville. He's finished in the top 5 in the Cup Series in multiple cars there. So I think SVG, if you give him that opportunity, would be in position. The 1.5 mile racetracks are definitely not as favorable for him. And there's 3 of them in the playoff. The super speedway at Talladega also kind of plays into his favor because he's getting a lot of experience on those, between the Cup car and the Xfinity car. Yeah, so we mentioned the points already. So talked about the results. So yeah, we'll move forward there. So from the NASCAR weekend, we will move to the roundup, and Formula 2 was at Silverstone, of course, for the weekend there, and the winners, Andrea Kimi Antonelli got the win in the sprint race in the rain, and then Isaac Hadjar got the feature race victory in the sprint race. Andrea Kimi Antonelli over Zane Maloney, Kushmaini, the podium, Gabriel Bortoleto 4th, Franco Colapinto 5th, Jack Crawford was 6th. For the Dams team, Ritomo Miata finished 10th. Juan Manuel Correa just outside the points in 12th. Yeah, so that's the sprint. What the heck? The sprint race, the feature race, Hadjar over Maloney and Jack Crawford. They were all separated between 2 seconds, so that is interesting there. Colapinto 4th again, Martins, Bortoleto, Ollie Bierman, Enzo Fittipaldi, Dennis Hauger, and Pepe Marti round out the top 10. Paul Aaron, the points leader, is 12th. There's issues for Correa and Kushmaini there, even though they were all on the lead lap. So see about that. The standing is moving to Budapest. Isaac Hadjar is a 16-point lead on Paul Aaron. Maloney, after getting off the schneid, so to speak, after having, 4 weekends where he scored a total of 13 points. He scored 26 in one weekend, gets himself back in 32 out of the lead, 16 out of second. Gabriel Bortoleto, Colapinto, they're separated, by 3 and 9 points respectively there for that third spot. Jack Crawford just outside of that in 6th. Andrea Kimi Antonelli with his sprint race win gets himself up to 8th. And that's the extent of that. In Formula 3, the results in Formula 3, Andre Lindblad gets the double at Silverstone, or Arvid Lindblad. Good job, Phil. Arvid Lindblad over Leon and Zagazeta in the sprint race. Boysen, Soloff, Mini, Sebastian Montoya, Mecca Tunef, Van Hoopen, and Luca Fornaroli rounding out the top 10 in the sprint. And then that's not what. And then in the feature, Arvin Lindblad, Mini, Voisin, Smith was Nicky, Goth, Fornaroli, Browning, Bedrin, and Noel Leon. Max Easterston finished 18th in that second race. So, for whatever that's worth, the standings, Mini has a 6-point lead on Lindblad and 7 on Browning. So, that's the battle for championship. Fornaroli is 26 points behind, and probably thinking about his other options there. So we'll move forward. MotoGP. Not Fabio Quartararo. Pecco Bagnaia ends up benefiting from Jorge Martin going and dumping it in the gravel with a couple laps to go. Gains the points lead after winning at Sachsenring. He shared the podium with the Marquez brothers. Alex, who's been driving for Gresini and is going to continue riding for Gresini. And then his teammate, the multi-time world champion Marc Marquez. And so that was a cool thing to have the brothers on the podium. Jorge Martin had won the sprint and was leading the race and had a decent gap and proceeded to dump it in the sand and give up the points lead, like I mentioned. Bagnaia, Marc Marquez, Alex Marquez, Enea Bastianini, Franco Morbidelli getting one of his best finishes in a long time. Miguel Oliveira for Trackhouse started on the front row, finished 6th. Pedro Acosta 7th. Marco Bezzecchi, Brad Binder, Raul Fernandez. Trackhouse, dual top 10. Fabio Quartararo just outside. Vinales, Miller, Nakagami, and Luca Marini gets his first point of the season. So credit to him. The standings for MotoGP heading into their next race. Bagnaia takes the lead by 10 over Martin Marquez. Marc Marquez 11 points out of Bastianini. And that's that battle. Then you have Vinales rounding out the top 5. Acosta 15 points behind. Brad Binder there in 7th. DG Antonio, Alicia Spargo, and Alex Marquez round out the top 10 in points. Their next race will be in... they won't race for 3 weeks. They're taking their summer break. So summer break, then they'll race in the British Grand Prix at Silverstone at the start of August. We got Moto 2. Moto 2 results. Latest news on Moto 2. Celestino Vietti, sort of Q1 to pull results and standings. The Moto 2, Felipe Aldeguer gets the win over Jake Dixon and Iagora. Celestino Vietti was 5th, or Morero and Vietti. Joe Roberts back on the bike, sore after his injuries, is 8th. And then, there's not a lot going on there back into the points. So the standings of Moto 2, the standings for Moto 2. So Sergio Garcia up by 7 over Iagora, 24 points. Joe Roberts in 3rd, and then 39 points to Felipe Aldeguer, Alonso Lopez rounding out the top 5. Go from that over to Townsville, Supercars, Repco Supercars Championship. The results at Repco? So at Townsville, they had a sweep for Ford. Ford with Cam Waters, as I mentioned earlier, in the first race gets the win. And then Matt Payne for Penrite Racing gets the win in race number 14. So Waters over Mostert. Will Brown was third. Matt Payne, Thomas Randall rounding out the top five. Then in the second race, trying to get the count results and driver season results, and then in race result, Matt Payne gets the win over Cam Waters and Chaz Mostert, so a Ford sweep, and 5 out of the top 6 were Fords. Credit to them, relative to some people that are behind with that. And I mentioned the points there, so so I mentioned the points already. So we'll go to Indy next. At what was it? They were at Mid-Ohio, and Kyle Collette got his first victory of his career in Indy Lights, or Indy Next, over Louis Foster, Jacob Abel. That's Jamie Chadwick was 10th. Jagger Jones 13th, Yuvan Sundaramurthy 14th. Miles Rowe was dead last with a mechanical issue. Unfortunate for him. So that was the race. So then the standings heading to Iowa, 41 points. Foster's lead over Jacob Abel. Kyle Collette's within 30 points of Jacob Abel. Then a huge gap to the likes of Callum Hedge. Right now, Chadwick is in 6th, 1 point behind 5th, and 9 behind 4th. And then Miles Rowe, who's 17 out of 4th, and counting down accordingly. So those are 2 people that we have to watch the rest of the season, see what the ovals do for the drivers and what that gets affected there. In WEC, you have they're racing at Brazil and Interlagos, so that's a tough out in middle of July. It's an interesting, the 6 hours of Sao Paulo, the hypercar is race week, season classification. 4 races to go. Lauder, Estra, and Vantor first in points with 99 for the drivers. 99 points for drivers. Championship 9 points ahead of the Ferrari that won Le Mans, Fuco, Molina, and Nicholas Nielsen. Then the Toyota of Kobayashi De Vries finished third. So that's that. In terms of the drivers' championship, constructors is Porsche, and we'll talk more about it next week. IMSA at Mosport, trying to get the entry list Chevy Grand Prix. So there's 35 entries, 12 from the LMP2, and then all of GTD and Pro and AM together. There's 9 in the GT Pro category. Mentioned the 2 Fords, including Joey Hand, the 1 Aston with Roscoe, Mario Farnbacher, 1 Lexus. What move the guys in the front would have. The LMP2s are for the overall. Some interesting people in interesting positions there. We'll see what happens though for the IMSA WeatherTech Championship. And then you have some drivers that are going to come over and race the race at IMSA, so we'll see what happens there. The WSBK 2024 is Superbike World Championship, gone through 4 or 5 rounds, 6 rounds of so that's calendar there for World Superbike. The results so far, Toprak, Raskatliyoku is the points leader over Nicola Baliga, Alvaro Bautista third, and that's 21 points versus second, and then 25 points for third. Trying to see there. Round results, and then you have schedule. So that's Toprak Razgatlioglu is doing the best he can to minimize the mistakes or minimize what could go wrong with the tire changers and whatnot. So, the stats show Razgatlioglu's 21 years, 155 points for Bautista, 3 behind his teammate, and 24 points out of Razgatlioglu. What does that really prove there? And then in terms of, Garrett Gerloff is 13th in points. So we'll see what happens. Extreme E, that's the last one. Extreme E, Ocean, what is it? It's the Hydro X Prix. Extreme debut with Legacy Motor Club at Hydro XP. Guy looks like a kid. Hada Hosas on developing the groundbreaking Pioneer Extreme H car. So the standings is the Red Bull team, or Rosberg Racing team that has 2 Red Bull drivers, Kristofferson and Alan Kotolinski. Then they're 2 points ahead of the Sainz team, and 8 on were Veloce, Andretti. So there's a close battle, 9 points separating 4 teams from second to fifth. Legacy Motor Club is in 6th. Then you have Sun Mini Meal and then JBXC rounding out the points. Let us move forward to IndyCar at Iowa this coming weekend for the Hy-V weekend at Iowa Speedway, the Hy-V Homefront 250 on Saturday night, and then they'll race again the following afternoon for the Hy-V one-step 250. So at least it's the same amount of miles that they'll race and same amount of laps. We'll go with IndyCar again. Race details, weekend schedule, latest event date. There's gonna be what's it called? One practice for an hour and a half, and then half an hour for Highline practice. So Josh, I'm not sure. I went first for the picks. So how about you for pick for Xfinity Xfinity for Iowa for the Indy cars?
I think so. Race 1, I'm gonna go with Pato O'Ward. It's my winner. Let's go back to back here at Iowa from Mid Ohio. My wild card pick here. I'm gonna go with I'm gonna go with Santino Ferrucci as my wild card pick in race 1 here. So see how that one works. But race 2, I'm gonna go with Will Power, and then wild card there. We'll go with Graham Rahal.
And you have Root Beer Floathead.
Last time we'll be hearing that on an IndyCar broadcast, by the way. Graham Rahal.
What?
Graham Rahal. Or Graham Rahal, as you say it.
Yeah, because no more Lee Diffie?
Yeah.
Oh, so they made that official. Oh, they just took them off because of the I thought it was because of the Olympics, but... Yeah,
but he's going to Cup full time after this race. I think he's broadcasting the the Brickyard 400 for NASCAR and then doing the Olympics.
Oh, wow, that's interesting.
Yeah.
That's so.
Anyway.
Kevin Lee's going to get more experience there as a lead announcer, so that'll be cool. Yeah, I'm going to go and pick New Garden in race 1 to get the victory at Iowa. My wild card selection will be Arenas VK. So yeah, so that's what I'll do. So Phil, J New race 1 with VK as wild card. In race 2, I will go with Scott Dixon. Dixon race 2 with wild card. I'll go with David Malukas because he just has a knack on these short ovals in his young career, especially at Gateway, which is coming up next month. Those are our picks. It's going to be interesting for sure with the repave and whatever, how that all works out. And I mean, the question about Palou, I think he will, but it's going to be more of a struggle than it would have been if there was more road courses for him to race on. We'll go to the triple header at Pocono. First is the truck race on Friday, 36 for 36. Nobody going home. Chris Wrong in the 1 for Tricon. Connor Mozak in the 7 for Spire. Ty Dillon, yeah, he's full time there. I'm not sure about any of those. Or is that Pedro Lopez? Thought it was Felipe Lopez for a minute. I'm like, really? You got Lane Riggs there. And Daniel Ross Chastain will be in the 45 this weekend. Luke Fenhouse in the 66. Roger Cruz, Spencer Boyd, and Sage Karam actually driving in a truck, so that'll be interesting. Since also the 46 has been moved from the whatever team that they had to now he's moved over to Young's Motorsports, Thad Moffitt. So that's something. For me, I'll go and pick Corey Heim, because why not? Trucks at Pocono, Phil Heim to win, and my wild card choice will be my wild card choice. I have to look at how many of these drivers have run. Team results. How many drivers have run every race? Is my question. There is, that's not what I wanted. The points. Yeah, so there's, 22, 23, 24, 25 of them have run every race, so they got the top 13. And, I'll go with Lane Riggs because he's still outside that cutoff, and Riggs wild card. How about you, Josh?
I'm gonna go with I guess I will go with Christian Eckes, just top 2.
Mm-hmm.
And I guess I will go with my wild card. I'll go with Sage Karam. Why not? It's a big one, but I mean, hey, he's ran good in the IndyCar here before, so
yeah, it's a home game for him. He's basically, what does it work out to? I think no more than an hour away. I think in Nazareth, so he's from there. Would be huge for him to get a decent run out there in the truck, and especially a truck that has very limited starts so far this year. So I'll put Karam wildcard. Xfinity at Pocono. Josh, you go first. Who do you look at to be a favorite there and a wild card for those races?
I look at for this one, Pocono in the Xfinity series. It's in the 20 this week. I don't know.
Ryan Truex.
Yeah, I was gonna say maybe him, but I don't know. This feels like a Cup driver could win here this weekend here, so I'm gonna go with William Byron, the 17, going out here and winning the race. So I pick him to win, and then wild card. I don't know. Wild card. Who's a good wild card here in this series? I don't like this. Pick. I'll go with Brennan Poole as a wild card this weekend.
Wild card. Yeah, I don't disagree with the pick with Byron because he hasn't been bad there. Not like amazing, but like he isn't bad there, and then that 17 cars fast every week. So, for me, yeah, I think it's a bit of a stretch to do that. To go that wild. I mean, you have Taylor Gray in the 19, Truex in the 20. I mean, one car's going home on, I guess, Friday or Saturday morning. As much as I do agree about the whole Cup thing, I am going to go with Cole Custer to win this weekend. So Custer to win. And in terms of wild card driver, trying to get the points here. The result driver point. 18 races. How many? All 18. That's 23. Yeah, 24, 25, 20 or 25. Yeah, so 23, 24, 13. So my choice as a wild card would be gonna have to. I think I'm gonna go with. I'm going to go with Anthony Alfredo, fast pasta, somewhat local driver. So get Alfredo wild card. And then the Cup Series at Pocono. The Cup Series will go move over into that, and I'll go and call Dennis Hamlin as the winner. And then I'm waiting on, in terms of the Cup Series, driver on every race is, the getaway, 400. Entry list has 37 for 36. 37 for 40. The NY Racing team back this weekend with JJ Haley. Otherwise, it's just the sponsor things there. So, trying to see the points there. Just a former guest on the show, Dawson Cram, as his dad, Kevin, on the pit box this weekend for JD Motorsports. After they had a double, they did not qualify. And then I'm trying to think of who the other person was, or people were. So, trying to get a Cup Series results, the points, heading in there. So you got 20, Larson there. Eric Jones missed a couple of races, but grandfather him in, essentially. Going as 34, 35, so 18th, 18th. So I will, do I go first? Yeah, so I said Hamlin to win, and then my wild card will be John Hunter Nemechek. He's getting the extra, or no, he's not getting extra seat time. I was about to say he is, but he's looking, it depends on the weekend, it seems, for Legacy. when they have pace or not. So it's interesting to see what they'll be able to bring to the table on Sunday. Josh, you get the final word on this week in terms of our picks for Pocono.
I'm gonna pick. Well, I guess if you're gonna pick Hamlin, I'll pick his so-called new rival. I'll pick Kyle Larson to win this weekend at Pocono. Interestingly, do that because of what happened last year and everything, but that's fine. I'll pick him as my wild card, and I'm gonna go with as my winner there in my wild card. I will pick. I'll pick Justin Haley again. See how he can do because he's had a good couple weeks, but we'll see how much longer he can keep it up for. So yeah, I'll go with him.
Yeah, definitely had pace, and it's a fuel mileage deal, so you never know. At Pocono, it could work out that he gets another one of those victories like he did at Daytona years ago in the car with the 77. Yeah, or the I believe it's 77, but maybe it was a Colleague car. Right, Josh, your time to shine. Let us know what's going on in the world of iRacing and the sim segment.
Yeah, of course. This week, iRacing 87's at Talladega, so just saw that. So that's about to happen here in I guess there's a session here coming up, but yeah, that's probably run some of that this week. Of course, all the NASCAR series at Pocono, Chuck, Xfinity, and Cup all Pocono. So go on there and run Pocono. IndyCar at Iowa this week, of course. Fixed IndyCar series this week at Iowa. Gen 4 and everything at Texas. So got that there. All the Cup, as I said, Cup at Pocono. So, and that's basically, that's all the main series. Any of the NASCAR series there at Pocono and IndyCar, Iowa. So, like in real life, and then the old 87s at Talladega there. So, got that. Sports car side, got the GR86 Cup at Long Beach this week. Got the MX5 Cup at Rodskogen Motor Center there, so got that there. The Mustang Skip Barber Challenge at Watkins Glen. Ferrari GT3s at Algarve International Circuit. Got that there. IMSA Michelin Pilot Challenge at Mugello. There, the GT Endurance Challenge at Brands Hatch Circuit, Grand Prix Circuit there. So IMSA Endurance Challenge at Canadian Tire Motorsports Park there. I think in terms of official series competitions this week in iRacing, I think this week is the beginning of the IndyCar Butt Kicker Challenge, which is I think a 6-week challenge, full length road course races full road course and oval races the next couple of weeks to 7-week series starting out at Long Beach and then going to Indianapolis next week. So that's going to be interesting. And I think that's going to be the top. It's basically just going to figure out who's the best in iRacing IndyCar in, I guess, the 6-week challenge here. So that should be interesting to watch, which definitely there's a very good community of iRacing on IndyCar, especially it's a very tight-knit series there. And then they'll fight for a $50,000 prize pool starting in September. So that should be fun there. So looking forward to kind of seeing how that plays out. IMSA Esports Global Championship set for November, partnering with IMSA and iRacing and Virtual Competition Organization, third straight year to stage 2024 IMSA Esports Global Championship starting in November. And there will feature a public qualifying process. Entries in the championship will be reserved for previous series champions and winners of the Grand Slam events. Every iRacing member will have the opportunity to earn their way into 4-race championship. And there will be a limited number of wildcard entries that will be featured. Wildcard entries from this include Nitro Circus Sim Racing Team, Texaco Racing by Tony Kanaan, Tony Kanaan's esports team. So that should be fun. Let's see here. The 4-round schedule kicks off with Michelin Raceway Road Atlanta, November 24th, Indianapolis Road Course, December 8th, Sebring International Raceway, December 5th, and then concluding at Daytona on the road course and iRacing on January 12th. Competition features the digitized versions of the Acura ARX06, BMW Hybrid V8, Cadillac V-Series R, the Porsche 963 GTP, along with the Mercedes GT3, BMW M4 GT3, the Corvette GT3R, Ferrari 296 GT3, Mustang GT3, Lamborghini GT3. So basically all the Lamborghini, Porsche 911 GT3, and from the GTD class currently available on iRacing. So that should be fun. Here, Max Verstappen's team Redline, Williams Esports have automatic berths into this, and Redline also has in GTD. So we'll see how to be able to get into this public competition here and see about getting into that. Definitely would be fun to race that, especially over kind of the, I guess, winter break here, of course, in real life and everything, and of course off season of motorsports. So that might be interesting to get into. So we'll see. Maybe get into that over the break. We'll see. And plenty of time to work on the road racing craft in the meantime until then, and to probably link up, because I'm assuming it's probably going to be team competitions and all that. So we'll see. We'll have to talk to people and all that stuff. But yeah, so yeah, of course, the iRacing streams as always on Twitch TV/User. Go on there, watch all my videos and streams there. So definitely looking forward. Maybe I have to do some Talladega this week for sure. So looking forward to racing on Talladega at the iRacing series on the 87 car, which is a lot of fun. But of course, go on there and watch like all the videos there, and follow on Twitter at my page at JV Helfine on Twitter. Probably have to post some photography on there as well. I got some photography I've been doing with rocket launches and all that stuff, so gonna have to start posting some of that on Twitter, which I post on my Instagram, but it's pretty cool there, so I might have to do that. Of course, got the videos and our all our podcasts on Gripster Podcast YouTube, so subscribe to there, and comment and interact with our page there. So yeah, it's a good discussion. Of course, glad Lewis Hamilton finally made it back into victory lane. It's definitely a pleasant sight, pleasant headline to hear about. So definitely glad about that. And of course, the emotion with that, of course, being able to see that after so many years. So glad we were all able to see that and talk about it.
Definitely fun to go and talk about that, and always great for us to go and do this every week. 228 episodes. It's crazy to think we're from what we started with that during COVID time back in 2020 to where we are now. In 2020, Lewis was winning every race. It seemed like amazing how 5 years, what happens in 5 years. But yeah, you can find us at GripsterPod on Twitter. You can find me at PGMatthew28 on Twitter, PhilipGMatthew28 on Instagram, PhilipGMatthew.com. You can find the show there. Obviously, follow the YouTube page, Gripster Podcast YouTube page, with Josh posting all the vids. We're on Podbean as well. Basically, if you listen to podcasts, wherever you listen to podcasts, you can hear the Gripster Podcast. So, that is that for me. For myself and for Josh, we thank you for listening to Gripster Podcast. And we'll see you next week for episode 229. Take care.